So welcome to the Digital Jesus podcasts. We're recording today's talk as part of our 9-day novena in preparation for Divine Mercy Sunday 2022. So on behalf of our wonderful Divine Mercy Prayer Group North Belfast, I am delighted today to be joined by Brendan Rodgers. So good day, Brendan. Thank you for joining us. So listen, today's talk is primarily going to be focused around, we're going to be talking mostly about a relic of St. Padre Pio today, and maybe anything else that comes up. That's Brendan's, what most people might know Brendan for, having this wonderful relic of St. Pio. So let me just say a quick bit about Padre Pio, unless people don't know. So Padre Pio, of course, his feast day is on the 23rd of September. I'm sure you knew that already, Brendan. He was canonised in 2002 by John Paul II, John Paul the Great, as he's now known, a saint himself. But before we get into some of these great saints and figures, Brendan, why don't you say just a bit about yourself and where you're from?
Well, I'm from Belfast, is that what you mean? Yeah.
You're from Belfast originally, that's a good start.
And my age now is 84 years of age, and I'm delighted to be with Father Frank here on this occasion to explain as much as I possibly can about Padre Pio and how I got the bloodstained bandage he had round his heart. That's the relic I have, part of the bloodstained bandage. And there was only two of us got it. When Pope John Paul was canonising him a saint, I was there, and they gave the Pope the exact same relic as I have. Only I had mine 20 years before the Pope. And had 6 private audiences with John Paul. I was at his summer residence. I was with him lots of times. I got a chalice made for him and presented it to him in the Vatican.
Excellent. So like you say, so you have this, as you say, an identical relic of one that was owned by John Paul. You got it a long time before him. He got his when he canonised Padre Pio, I believe.
They presented John Paul with the same relic as they gave me 20 years before on that day when he was making him a saint.
Excellent. So as you know, a part of our Catholic tradition, relics are a very important part of our devotion to the saints. This relic is, I found out it's unique. This has actually touched the open wound of the heart of Padre Pio. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
So if you were to describe the relic, how would you describe the relic that you own?
Well, I can show you it, Father, and you can see it for yourself.
I'll show it, and we'll get some close-up footage of this so we can share it with folk. So what am I looking at here, Brendan?
Blood-stained bandage.
So this is actually a blood-stained bandage that would have... so some of our viewers may or may not know, Padre Pio, I believe, well, he did have the stigmata, but he had the complete stigmata.
He had the 5 wounds of Christ, and he was the only priest ever known to have the stigmata.
So the only priest known to have the complete stigmata, the 5 wounds of Christ, as we often refer to. So that would be the hands, the feet, and the side.
Yeah, and some of the old people when I was in San Giovanni, the ghost of his Mass, they were able to see him getting the crown of thorns at the consecration many a time. The local people, old people.
Fascinating. So this would have been a bandage that would have been on the heart wound, the chest.
And he never allowed anybody to dress his heart wound, only himself. He never let them see his heart wound. Okay. And apparently it was 7 inches, but 7 inches the shape of a crucifix.
Okay. So we'll show this. Is it all right if I leave it there for our little interview?
Yeah, no problem.
So that's the relic there. So let's begin a wee bit by going back. An extraordinary story, really, how you came across this piece, this miraculous piece. So we'll begin by going back to San Giovanni Rotondo and how you got the relic. Do you want to say a wee bit about how you actually came into possession of the relic, Brendan?
Before I got this relic, I was very friendly with a monk down in a place called Mount Mallory. And it was him that introduced me to Padre Pio. I used to go into him every Saturday night, and I was getting experiences of Our Lady, visions at this particular grotto, and he got to know me well, and he said to me, on one occasion when I went into him, I didn't know he could read your soul, but after a couple of times, he said to me one day, would you like me to hear your confession, Brendan? And I said, Father, I need a barrister along with me. And he said to me, you couldn't be that bad. I said, it was worse. He said to me, I said, okay, Father. And I was just saying, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. And I was about to tell him, and he says to me, how would you like me to tell you your confession? He says, what age are you? I says, 43 at the time. He says, I'll take you back to the day you left school when you were 14. And he told me every sin I committed, right up to it. And he said, you definitely played the part of a cowboy. And he says, after me and him got very friendly, he said to me one day when I went in, you think you're a great Our Lady's man. I says, did you ever hear me boasting in my life? Well, he says, no, I don't mean it that way. He says, you're going to start working for Padre Pio. Do you know anything about him? I says, I've heard about him, but I don't know anything personally. He says, I have news for you. He's standing shoulder to shoulder. He was able to see Padre Pio standing beside me. I didn't see him now, but he saw him. And he says, you're going to start working for him. And that's how it all began. So I went down and made arrangements with Ulster Bus. I said, I want you to do a 14-day trip to San Giovanni for me in the shrines of Italy. So it was a man called Hoyback that was over it, and he says to me, go you and book the hotels, we'll supply the coach, and it's going to cost you $2,400 for the hire of the coach for 14 days. But if you get that bus into the Vatican Square, I'll do the trip for you for £1,000. So this was in the month of February. He was talking to me about all this, and I was telling him exactly where I wanted to go. And he said to me, before you go, do you know how to get there? I says, I haven't a clue where the Vatican is, never mind take your coach. He said, well, what are you going to do if you get lost? I says, only me and the two drivers will know, the passengers won't. He says, well, if you're game, I'm game. And he says, when you get that bus in the continent, take it wherever you like. So anyway, for the first trip, I went out to San Giovanni, and it went by road for 15 years. It took hired Ulster bus, and the reason why I'd done it was because of the people that was afraid of flying. I said, I'll cure that. And I called myself Pilgrim Road Tours. I was the only man ever known to take Ulster bus to San Giovanni. 3,500 miles round trip. And that's how it all began. And when I got into San Giovanni, it was my first time, and I got to know Father Alessio. He introduced me. At that time, he was giving tours, but he's dead and buried now, God have mercy on him. He brought you around and showed you with the crucifix come alive, where Padre Pio looked at, was praying in front of it, and when he looked, he had all the wounds that Christ had. The tomb was bleeding at the same time. That's how it all began for Padre Pio. And after a while, me and him become the best of friends. Father Alessio was his right-hand man. He stayed with him for the last 10 years of his life, 24 hours a day, looking after Padre Pio. And the day they gave me the relic, my daughter was killed that night in a bad car crash. And I thought it was only her. Ulster bus rang me up, a girl called Chris Mooney. She says, Brendan, the very bad news for you. your daughter was killed in a car crash this last night. And I says to her, was it her fault? That's all I remember saying. He says, no, it wasn't her fault at all. It was a drunken driver killed her. But I didn't know there was 4 of the neighbours' children along with her in the car. They were all burned to death. And we couldn't even open the coffins for 12 days. They said, if I let you see this coffin, you'd never sleep for the rest of your life. And that was in Foster Green's Hospital. So we never saw them. They were that badly burnt. They thought there was only 4 in their car, but there was definitely 5. And that was the morning they gave me that relic. I got the relic of Padre Pio, and it was on the 7th of September. And I met 3 people since that worked for Padre Pio, the same as myself. And each one of us had somebody killed on the 7th of September. So when we told it in San Giovanni, Father Alessio told us, when you're going to work for Padre Pio, he takes a member of your family on the 7th of September to give to Our Lady on the 8th, on her birthday. It's your turn this year. And that's how I got the relic of Padre Pio. There must have been at least 10,000 people in the square when Father Alessio walked over to me, and he says to me, Brendan, this was my 2nd journey to San Giovanni. He says to me, where are you staying? That's what hotel are you in? I says, the Parque della Rosa. He says, well, make Friday at 12 free. I'm going to give you something very precious to take home with you. And I hadn't a clue what he was giving me. So anyway, 12 o'clock, and when he came into the hotel, I was sitting with a Christian brother called Brother Eustace. He was one of the passengers on my trip, and a lady school teacher. And he says to them too, could you excuse me, please? I want to talk to Brendan. So he brought me over into the corner, and he says to me, before I give you this relic, don't land it, don't cut it, don't wash it, and if you ever lose it, don't come back to San Giovanni. I says, whatever this is you're going to give me, I don't think I'll be capable of looking after. He says, I have no say in the matter. Padre Pio told me you were the one who was to get the relic. So that's how you're getting the relic of Padre Pio. So that's where it all transformed for. And I'd done it by road for 15 years, by coach, as I say, just to make sure the people that didn't like flying would be able to see San Giovanni. So that's how it all started.
Incredible. Well, listen, let's do a quick recap, Brendan. So you're roughly 43. You go to see this priest in Mount Melleray, did you say?
Yeah, Father Athanasius O'Brien.
Athanasius O'Brien.
And I didn't know he could read your soul till I got to know him.
Well, probably, yeah, because I wouldn't imagine you would have been maybe as quick to go to him if you knew he was reading your soul all right. But so that's extraordinary. So this priest is reading your soul. He's telling you, hearing your confession, telling you what's going on. And then even then, this extraordinary story begins by him telling you that you're going to be working for St. Pio, for Padre Pio as he was then. So you start doing these road trips to San Giovanni, pilgrims, where you befriend Father Alessio.
Yeah.
And who's turns out to be a good friend. So extraordinary. This that Padre Pio himself wanted you to have this actual relic. It was his doing. He had obviously had inspiration that you were the one that was going to take this relic back to Ireland, I suppose.
And he told me, he said, you needn't worry about advertising it. Whoever Padre Pio wants, he'll send them to you. You'd never have to advertise, which I never did. And believe you me, for the last 20 years, he sent me thousands of people. It got that bad. There was a lady come to me, and she asked me would I go and bless her son. in Dundonald Hospital. Teresa McAvoy, you called her, and she was from Rathfine. And her son was building a bungalow, and when he was putting the iron tape up, he hit the electric wires and got his foot burned off. And she rang me about 20 times. I was blasting him in Dundonald Hospital, and they wanted to take his leg off, and she kept asking me, what would you do, Brendan? I says, Teresa, I wouldn't like to give you advice on that. She said, well, they said gangrene setting in. But anyway, I blessed him at least 20 times. About after 6 weeks, she rang me one day and she says to me, Brendan, could you come down to the house? I want to show you something. So down I went that night, and she said to her son, now his foot was completely black when I saw it, where it was burnt. She says to him, take off your shoe. There was a brand new foot built. When he took his shoe off, his foot was perfect. And she went on television thinking she was doing me a good turn and told the whole story about me. And I must have got 20,000 calls in a week. It was got that bad, I took my landlady out of the house and just got mobiles for them all. That's how bad it was.
So listen, I want to talk relic and blessings and miracles. We'll definitely come back to it, maybe share one or two more stories. But I want to just want to jump back a wee bit so that we don't. There's an important part of that story I don't want to overlook as well. So Brendan, I want to go back to this great blessing. I know from listening to you in the past that same week you received the relic of St. Pio, you also got to meet the Pope, who you've met subsequently 6 times, you said.
Yeah.
6 private audiences, shake the Pope. I know you met some other powerful people that week. So a week of blessings, but then tinted with like the tragedy. You seem very comfortable talking about that now. I just want to go back to that moment, if it's not too uncomfortable, losing your daughter. I know Patricia, I believe she was only 19 in that tragic car accident at the time. Mixed blessings of pain and joy in that week. I'm just interested, fascinated. Where was your mind at with regards to your faith?
Well, I'll tell you how it happened. The next morning after she was killed and I heard about it, Ulster Bus had set up everything for me to get home. But Father Alessio personally guaranteed me she went straight to heaven. And I said to him, how can you be so sure? He says, well, I've been a priest for 55 years. And he said, I'm guaranteeing you on my oath that your daughter went straight to heaven. And about 6 weeks after, they got a call in Dungannon to a lady called Josie Donahue. She asked me to come and bless her. She was in a wheelchair, this lady. And I went in at 5 to 12 on a Sunday, me and a friend of mine called Leo McCarthy. And I says to Leo, I know Father Alessio told me that she was definitely in heaven, but to make sure, me being a doubting Thomas, whoever owns this house, I said, I've never seen as many roses in a garden in my whole life. And I said, the only one's going to know is me and you, Leo, what I'm going to ask to try Padre Pio to make sure she's not in purgatory. He says, what are you going to do? I says, let it be a man or woman who lives in this house who wants blessed. Before I leave them, I want a red rose, a yellow rose, and a purple rose. And Leo says to me, there's no such thing as a purple rose. I says, Leo, I don't care whether there is or not. That's what Padre Pio has to give me. And it was exactly 5 to 12 on a Sunday morning when we went into the house. We didn't get out of our house till 10 past 12 that night. She made us our dinner, tea, everything. And I had totally forgot about what I'd asked Pat about the flowers, and so did Leo. And just as I was about to turning the key in my car to drive off. Her husband come running down the drive and said, I forgot to give you them. And he had them wrapped in tin foil. Red rose, yellow rose, and a purple rose. And I says to Leo, thought you told me there was no purple roses. So that's it, the test I give Pio to guarantee me that she wasn't in purgatory. 6 weeks after, again, I lifted Leo every morning at 7 o'clock for the 7 o'clock Mass in the Clonard Monastery. And this particular day, he slept in. And I said, God, I don't know what happened, Leo, this morning. But anyway, he came into the chapel after. I says to Leo, before I went into Mass, I'm going to test him once more. This is me testing Padre Pio again. He says, what are you going to do? I says, I'm giving him 7 days to send me a white flower. Now, this is 5 to 7 on a Monday morning. And he says, what kind of a white flower? I says, I don't care, it's the daisy, Leo. I'm giving him 7 days. When we were coming out at 7:30, when the Mass was over, this old man came over to me and he put his hand on my shoulder and he says, son, before I say anything, I don't want you to think I'm an idiot or a head case. I'm actually a music teacher. I said, sure, what I care what you are. I ain't never seen you in my life before. He says, well, the reason why I'm coming over today, I was walking by Our Lady's altar and a voice told me to take a white rose and give it to you. And that was all in the one day. And me and the man that gave me it, we became life friends to this day. So that's the way I tested Pio.
Extraordinary. So, well, I suppose with all going on, you're within your rights, I suppose, to be asking for a little signs from heaven, as they say. So I'm sure
he was tired listening.
There were little comforts amongst what was, as I say, great blessings, but also great sorrow and tragedy for you and the wife to be carrying as well as part of that. Extraordinary, Brendan. So listen, let me just see. So that was an elder. So you sounded like a bit of a reluctant prophet. You're putting me in mind of Jonah here, trying to run away from this ministry. If only you had known, as they say, what was maybe waiting, you might have thought twice about taking this. So that was obviously the early days.
That was the beginning of it.
So you've had it 30 years now, 30 plus. I'm guessing. I'm just guessing that number off the top of my head with the numbers you've given me, and you've already spoke of mentioned one story in particular, and you've said that Padre Pio guaranteed you that people would come to you. That's been obvious, I think, with the amount of people that I know personally that have come and been blessed from you. So listen, let's talk miracles. It's a big part of our faith. I know John Paul in one of those private audiences told you that St. Pio has more miracles associated with him, official, I suppose, recognised by Rome, part of the process as having miracles, than all other saints put together. Usually a saint might be lucky if they get one or two, but he reminded you that St. Pio's had numerous. So listen, basically, would you like to why don't you say a bit about St. Pio miracles and maybe any that you've encountered over those 30 plus years? If there are one or two miracle stories you would like to share with us?
Well, about maybe 10 years ago, I got a phone call from a man I'd never heard of. And he asked me could I meet him in Liskeay in Little Car Park, that's the shopping centre. And I didn't know the man at all. And he says, I believe you can heal anybody. I says, look, before I go near you, I says, I couldn't heal a fly. I'm only the message boy. He said, will you bless the minister? And he had cancer in his leg for 12 years. And when he went for a checkup about 3 weeks after you've done it, whatever you'd done for him, he was completely cured. I says, but it's not everybody gets cured. I says, I want you to get that clear before I come and meet you. So anyway, we made the arrangements and I went down and saw him. You call this man Roy Nixon, and he was a Protestant. And I was explaining to him all about the relic. And after about a half an hour, he said to me, I know I'm cured. I says, how do you know? He says, the minute you touched me with that relic of yours, I knew you had cured me. And I says to him, well, what was wrong with you? He says, I've been bleeding inwardly for the last 20 years, and my own family doesn't know. You're the only one that knows. And he said, the minute I left you, I went straight to my doctor and told him I would never be back again. I'd only be defeating the purpose. I met a man the night that cured me. That's what he told the doctor. So that was one of them. But I could go on all day about cures. But I know personally it's nothing to do with me, because Father Alessio told me the greatest gift God can give you is humility. So I took his advice.
So listen, like you say, I'm sure we could fill an hour probably just, I'm sure. I know you've said in previous interviews, and that was a long time ago, that you've blessed easily in the region of 20,000 plus people with that. So we could, let's say, we could talk blessings, and but let's talk a wee bit about healing ministry itself. Obviously, as a priest, and it's something that might be interesting. As somebody that's been involved, as you say, we are just the instruments when it comes to God's healing ministry. We are the instruments. God's chosen you to be an instrument through a great saint, St. Pio, and the relic, this wonderful grace of relics that we have in our church and our faith. I wanted to maybe just pick your head with some difficult questions, in the sense of, the first one that's coming to mind that I often think myself, Brendan, is, and some people often ask, why some and why others? What's your thoughts on that? And maybe you just don't, like most of us, don't have an answer. Why do you think some people are healed and others aren't, with those miraculous healings, in a sense? Because I'm convinced that everybody's healed, and to some degree, but
well, you see, when I'm blessing a person, all I say is, if they want to tell me what's wrong with them, and if they don't, I don't ask them. And I just say to Padre Pio and the Blessed Virgin Mary, if it's your son's will, Mother, let this, if the person doesn't get healed physically, I want them healed spiritually. That's all I say when I'm blessing them. And it definitely works for me. I have people comes up to me recently, do you remember me? I see that many people I would never remember them. Well, she says, just a week ago, a woman told me she was riddled with cancer. When I blessed her, when she went back, she had no cancer at all. That was just a week ago.
Amazing. I mean, how do you account for that kind of
This
stuff?
is a regular thing.
That's something you would encounter. It's a simple prayer, Brendan. I can't dispute that. If it's God's will, and